This is KSL Sunday Edition with Boyd Matheson.
Welcome to Sunday Edition. I am Boyd Matheson. Each Sunday we attempt to divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense. We have conversation with great thinkers, great leaders, and great people making a difference in this country. We talk politics so we can discuss society. We talk about society so we can talk about the principles and the people in America who actually live them. We bring the best and brightest to Utah, and we send the Utah model to our nation's capital and beyond. We begin today with someone who's become one of the great thinkers, writers, and thought leaders in America. Washington Post columnist Megan McArdle joins us in studio today. And Megan, welcome to Utah. Welcome to Sunday Edition.
Thanks for having me.
It is great to have a conversation. I always look to you for perspective and your keen ability to observe and look at what's going on in the nation. And I know one thing that's been on your mind lately has been this idea of abundance.
Yes.
Why is that important to us?
I think that we're in a moment where we have actually in the center of the politics a growing recognition that abundance really matters, that it's not just about redistributing what we already have, but making sure that we tear down the obstacles to having more in the future. And unfortunately, that movement is flanked on the right and left with, on the left, you have people who are the proponents of what Ezra Klein calls everything bagel liberalism, where you got to do everything in every project, and the result is that you end up doing nothing, right? You've got to get, you have to have unions, have to have above market wages, and you've got to do, anti-racism and DEI and all sorts of other things just to get one windmill built. And then by the end, you just can't afford to build the windmill. I think California's high-speed rail is a great example of this. On the other hand, you have, sort of the MAGA Republicans who talk about deregulation, and that was definitely in President Trump's agenda when he came into office. But at the end of the day, if you look at what's happening in the Republican primary, it's mostly culture war stuff. And so I think unfortunately, even as people on the center left are starting to realize that everything bagel liberalism just doesn't work. You look at the state of California, you can see it doesn't work. There are some people in that camp who are moving towards abundance, and we've got some people on the right who are, no, I don't want to talk about abundance. I just want to talk about who has what we already have. And I think it's such a short-sighted way to think about the world, because there are so many things that we still need to do. I mean, you in Utah know you need cleaner air with the inversions that you get during the summer. We need, greener energy. We need more energy. We need the big, more housing, more everything, so that people can live fulfilling, happy, comfortable lives. And that is, I'm just so passionate about this issue, and as I think you can hear. I've been thinking a lot about why this isn't more popular, because everyone loves more stuff, right?
Everybody wants more, but sometimes
the self-storage industry is booming because we love our stuff a little too much.
Way too much. And sometimes in that effort to do it all, we do end up doing nothing at all.
Yes, exactly.
And you mentioned that center left to center right, where there seems to be this growing group that is saying, look, let's kind of laser focus. And whether it's something like immigration, where rather than doing a 4,000-page bill that will never get passed and no one will ever read, to say, look, we can all agree on a border. We can all agree on we got to make it easier to come in here legally. What are some of the other things that you're watching in terms of, hey, if we just quit trying to do it all and just got a little more laser focused and targeted, we actually could get something done?
Look, I think housing is number one, right? I think you know this. You've had so many people moving in. You made the mistake of having beautiful mountains, and now everyone's moving here after the pandemic, and you are running up against hard limits. So I think Utah actually has some unique challenges with water, with just, the mountains are beautiful and also hard to build on. But if you look in other states, you've got people who want to move to places where there are jobs, where there's opportunities for them and their children, and they can't move because the places just will not build enough housing. And that has to do with all of these endless restrictions, from environmental review to community review to historical districts to zoning, and all of these things are obstacles to people building better lives. And coming in and also helping, if you're moving someone from a place where they don't have a lot of opportunity to some place where they do, you're not just helping that person, which is great, but you're also helping the rest of us, because they're doing something that's more productive. They're doing something that has more spillover effects for the rest of us. So housing is probably the biggest area where I think we see just so many So much low-hanging fruit just left hanging. But I think there's so many other issues too. Things like, look at what happened during the pandemic with biomedical innovation. It was really inspiring for me to see how fast we got vaccines, but also how fast people were just throwing information up on the web. Let's figure this out, not waiting for peer review. I think that kind of do it fast and then check scientific culture has been really productive. We need to improve that. I mean, there's on the government policy side, the way we do grants is, are you an old guy who's been around forever and do you have, like 9 things you've already done? Well, people tend to actually be most scientifically innovative when they're quite young, and it's hard for those people to get grants now. So we need to think about, are we too conservative in how we hand out money? Are we too, focused on getting these little incremental improvements rather than big breakthroughs? How do we think about, we have these new large language models, and what's the first thing that happens? Congress holds hearings on should we just shut this down, right? So, I mean, partly it's just a mindset about how we approach these things, but I think there's just a lot of space left to run in humanity's future, and I'm eager to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a vital thing, because sometimes what we end up having are these arguments about the big, and it actually creates this scarcity mentality everywhere else.
Yes.
We can't do these other things. Well, we're going to stay with that conversation. We're going to continue our conversation with Washington Post columnist Megan McArdle here on Sunday Edition. When we come back, we're going to dive into why we should still have hope in America and why our best days aren't behind us. They're actually ahead of us. Stay with us. More Sunday Edition coming up next. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. We're continuing our conversation with Washington Post columnist Megan McArdle. And Megan, one of the things that we share in common, I think we both can get a little pessimistic about our politics, but we both remain very bullish in terms of the future of the country.
Yeah,
you are someone who is quick to observe. You look at the nuances of the nation. So what is it that makes you bullish on the future of the country?
One of my favorite stories I ever tell, I was staying when I was on book leave. I had no money because I was on book leave and then would get paid on book leave. So I'm staying at a La Quinta hotel to do some research for the book in Memphis, Tennessee, and it's kind of dangerous. And everyone staying there is as desperate as I am, at least. And so I'm running off to an appointment. It's 5 in the morning. I back up and I hear a crunch. And I look and there's some guy's bumpers hanging off and I freak out because I don't have any money. And I did have the moment where I was like, I could just pull away. And I got out, I wrote the note and I put it on. And all day I'm in bankruptcy court, actually covering bankruptcy court. And I'm waiting for the call. And then I'm gonna have to call my husband and tell him how much money that we don't have, that we're gonna have to. And it never comes. And I go back to the hotel that night and I see that in fact the bumper is kind of duct taped on and it had been like that for a while. That guy could have gotten a new bumper out of me. I don't know who it was. Never saw him. I know they had a Navy uniform in the back, but that's all I know about this person is that they didn't have any money because they were staying in that hotel. And they decided not to. And that is actually more common than not.
Yeah.
Decency and Americans treating each other well is so much more common than Americans treating each other badly. And the problem is that the parts where we treat each other badly are the parts that make the news. They're the parts that are online. But in fact, if you look at people interacting every day, what do I see? I see Americans being good to each other all the time. And so I think we assume that everyone out there is mean and hates us. And if they're not like us, they're just sitting and thinking about how much they dislike us. And that isn't true. In person, another great story. I was at a Trump rally. Washington Post journalist, Trump rally. Not the friendliest environment. But the funny thing was I'm trying to get to the press pen and it's really packed. And these people are literally chanting like, lock them up about the press. And then they're stopping. He's like, honey, come on, get out of the way. She's got to get me the press, but honey, come on, move. And like people are parting their neighbors to help me through. Yeah. That is who I think we really are. I don't think the chants are who we really are. And so that is, I look at America and I look at all the things we've been through. We've been through the Civil War, the Palmer raids. We locked up Japanese people in World War II. We with chattel slavery. We didn't treat the Native Americans very well. All of those things, we did those bad things, but we did so many good things. Yeah. And you can look at the past and or even the present and think the bad things are the ones that matter. Yeah. But I say, we did those bad things. We need to acknowledge them. Yeah. And to atone for them as much as we can, but we also need to say no. We're actually we're the nation that stopped doing those things. Unlike most nations in human history, we're the nation that got better.
Yeah.
and took care of its people and takes care of each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to think about whenever we ask, like, are you bullish on America's future? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are the nation that did all that, and we can do even better in the future.
That's right, and I love that, and it's so easy if you're just got the steady stream of the national cable news going in your ear or on your screen. It can be pretty discouraging pretty fast, or you do think that every difference is a reason for division and divisiveness, and that everybody hates each other. But if you travel around the country, it's just not that way. It's neighbor helping neighbor in need. It's people coming together around good causes. We've had an extraordinary thing here at KSL, just with, we have such a connection to Hawaii and to Maui in particular. The amount of money that this organization has raised just in 10 days to help the people over there and to make a difference. And that's, to me, the thing that really matters. I want to get to one other component, because I think it's kind of the soft underbelly that we have to watch out for. If we're going to continue to be excellent and continue to be able to do all of those good things. You talked about this in the context of the lazy girl job, or those who are just starting to do the minimum standard. And tell us why that's dangerous to a democracy.
Look, I think it's dangerous to the person, because the person who's doing the minimum is the most likely to get laid off. And if your job can be done, if your job is not that intensive and can be done from, the beach, it can probably be done from Bangalore. But I also think it's dangerous to the nation, because it's a way of thinking about, it's just me, is how can I withdraw into myself more, right? How can I, it's not that I think that everyone should work 80 hours a week. I don't. I think there's family, there's community, there's a lot of important things out there. But one of the things is to be thinking, I think, in every area of our life, how can we give the most? How can we do, be the most excellent? How can we be doing the most at every task that we do? Because at the end of the day, like when you look back, are you, the people often say, are you going to be happy that you spent, are you going to wish you spent more time at the office? Probably not. But you know what? Are you going to wish you spent more time doing yoga? Probably also not. In fact, it's the stuff when we're out there trying to do things for other people, being part of the community. I spent time yesterday at the other side is building a new village to house chronically homeless people of tiny houses, and talking to people there about the way that work makes a difference for their life, and how that, delivering donuts, and that it makes you feel needed, it gives you self-esteem. Those things are really important, and I think that we forget them at our peril.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say the most dangerous moment is when you just start doing that minimum standard. And it's true in a relationship. Absolutely. It's true in a community, and it's true in a country, that if we just start doing those minimum standard things, we end up missing it all. Megan McArdle, Washington Post, we always appreciate following your thoughts, what you're watching and observing. We'll continue to watch that as you give us the great nuances of the nation and perspective on important conversations and things that actually matter. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Other Side Academy and how tiny homes can actually create space for a village that will create big transformation in the lives of those who've been chronically unhoused and unsheltered. So stay with us. Much more to come here on Sunday Edition here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. The Other Side Village is a new way to look at an old problem of helping those experiencing homelessness or being unsheltered. It's based on a similar model to the Other Side Academy, which is a therapeutic community changing lives of those who've been trapped in the criminal justice system. The Other Side Village is preparing for their first villagers. Moe Egan joins us from the Other Side Village with an update. Moe, welcome back to Sunday Edition.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
For our viewers who haven't been following closely, give us kind of the high level in terms of what is the Other Side Village?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Other Side Village is, from our sister organization, the Other Side Academy. It's quite differently. What we do have in common is our culture. Yeah. And so the Other Side Village is for folks who have been chronically homeless, those folks that suffer from mental illness. We have some ongoing drug addictions and displaced veterans. It's that community that we want to help. And so one of the things that's different about the Other Side Village is that, one of the current models that exist kind of gives a person a housing voucher, and you move into your house. And, we need that housing first, but we also need those wraparound services as well. And so we think that the first step is housing first. But we need to help a person figure out how to actually live and how to maintain that place once they move into it. And so one of the things we do differently is we created our prep school.
Yes.
And a prep school is an opportunity for a person to kind of recalibrate your moral compass, get into a prep school. It's a minimum of 6 months, a maximum of 12. And that's going to be how we show you how are you going to actually maintain this place when you move in. And we have coaches that have that lived experience that can grab your hand and say, hey, we're going to walk you through and we're going to show you how to maintain your place once you move in.
Yeah, and I love that whole idea of getting beyond just, hey, here's a voucher, go stay in this hotel, or here's a first month's rent, knowing that cycle is just going to continue and continue.
Absolutely.
But this is really based on, we're going to take 6 months and get you ready so that you have the skills, the ability to become self-reliant, independent, and contribute to the village.
Exactly. We definitely want to make sure we have that self-sufficient piece in and that dignity of work piece as well. And one of the things that offers that is you give a person an opportunity to have some skin in the game, right? And that's why we made sure that each person that eventually moves into the Other Side Village will have to pay rent. Yeah. Right. We want that person to learn how to stick up, and if they see something that may be destructive to themselves or the community, we want to teach them in the prep school how to speak up for that. But each person will definitely be required to pay rent, and we wanted to make sure that, if a person, I'll use myself for example, if I go out and, I do something and destroy my life, then it's on me, and I need to have skin in the game. I need to have an opportunity to participate in my life. And that's one of the reasons why we have our social enterprise businesses that will also be attached to the Other Side Village. And it gives a person that dignity of work as well. Yeah, that dignity of work, I think, is so important, developing that. And then being a contributing member to the community. You mentioned the social enterprises that you have. So this is not just a handout. This is not government just coming in and saying, here, we're going to treat you like a liability to be managed. We see you as a human asset with infinite potential. Exactly. And as I go and I'm recruiting folks around Salt Lake City and the area, and most folks aren't looking for a handout. They're actually looking for a way to participate in the recovery. And our social enterprises is kind of unique because it's an opportunity to get Utah taxpayers off the hook. Like, you're no longer paying for this person. They have skin in the game. They're paying their own way. And we do that. So our first phase, we're building 25 our versions of an Airbnb, and it'll be our community inn, right? And folks that are currently homeless, they're going to have to learn how to be a concierge, customer service. There's landscaping jobs as well. Also, in our first phase, we'll have a bodega grocery store. Somebody needs to manage that grocery store. Somebody needs to learn how to keep it stocked. And we've already gone ahead and started our donut shop. We have folks right now that were formerly homeless that come in 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and make those donuts and deliver those donuts. And you can do that as well. It's called the Other Side Donuts. So that is up and operational as well. Also, in our first phase, we'll have a medical center as well. And we're also going to have a 10,000 square foot social enterprise building. That's going to give us the opportunity to continue to incubate, create jobs that create revenue. They give us an opportunity to cover some of our operating expenses. Yeah, I love that. And so as you look at this phase, obviously these tiny homes are going to be part of that village. But again, that kind of ability to say, hey, this is my place. Exactly. And I have a place that I'm part of that community. Exactly. That's a game changer because not too many people just in the surrounding community get an opportunity to move into a brand new house. And these homes will come fully furnished. It'll be a small living room where you can entertain a guest. There'll be a bedroom. There'll be a walk-in shower with a toilet and a bathroom. And most of the units will come with a front porch as well. Kind of, if I want to go out in front porch, I'm signaling, hey, I want to be social. I want to be involved in the community as well. But, when you're helping folks like this get back on their feet, you definitely want to create an environment that's beautiful, that's safe, and prosperous, and something that I can have ownership in, that I can say, this is mine. I'm going to stick up for the community. Yeah, so important. And the Other Side Village, again, this is your operation. You're just recruiting your first students right now. Just give us a 30-second on what they're going to do. Yeah, absolutely. So the elephant in the room is always going to be, is the person ready, right? Now, we can offer the world. If that person's not ready, chances are it's not going to work. Yeah. And so what we do is our organization and our success has been built on trust.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to build this relationship. And so the first time we interview a person, we're going to sit down with a couple of our coaches with lived experience. We've been there and done that. We were just 5, 10, maybe 15 years removed from that life. And we're just going to have a conversation and get to know each other. Our second interview, we're going to do it a little bit more of a detail. We'll get a questionnaire. We want to know a little bit about your health. If possible, you have any court dates or anything like that. None of that's a disqualifier, but it gives us an opportunity to have a little bit more information so that we can help you a little bit more. Yeah. And then the other thing that we do that's differently is for 4 weeks, they're going to be required to show up once a week for 30 to 45 minutes. We want to see, hey, can you actually show up and do what you say you're going to do, right? Can you participate in a community? Yeah. How do you receive feedback? How do you give feedback? Are you going to be a contributing member to this community?
Fantastic. Moe Egan, thank you so much for joining us today. Such an important work there at the Other Side Village. Yeah. Well, final thought to close out the program. Abraham Lincoln knew that what people trapped in poverty or isolated from opportunity need more than a connection to money or government programs. They needed a connection to other people. The America we need is found in the interconnectedness of people, in the space between government and the individual. Family, community, neighbors, businesses, nonprofits, religious groups, and volunteer organizations succeed in the space big government often falters or fails in. Hillary Clinton was correct when she wrote that it takes a village. Where I think she got it wrong was assuming that the village was government or government-driven programs alone. The most valuable village is a place where people live the kind of principles that produce a spirit of shared commitment and a sense of belonging for every citizen. Belonging comes through those shared commitments. That's what the Other Side Village can bring to those struggling on our streets. I was fortunate a few years ago to interview Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks from the United Kingdom, who sadly passed away far too soon. In that conversation, Rabbi Sacks told me, if there's one thing the great institutions of the modern world do not do, it is to provide meaning. Science tells us how, but not why. Technology gives us power, but cannot guide as to how to use that power. The market gives us choices, but leaves us uninstructed as to how to make those choices. So the result is the 21st century has left us with a maximum of choice and a minimum of meaning. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg once said, I think we have a crisis of belonging in this country that is helping to explain why so many of our problems, from politics being what it is to the fact that people are self-medicating and we're seeing a rise in the depths of despair. That's the real challenge. So societies rise as we help each other climb to and catch a view from the higher ground, while recognizing that there's room there for all to come, to thrive, to belong, where lives can be transformed, neighborhoods gain strength, and societies rise when people belong to a family and a community bound by those institutions. That does it for us here on Sunday Edition. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us today. And as always, as you go out into the world, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference. Music and the spoken word is next.